So what I'm going to be doing is rendering these honeycomb that we can't use in the hive anymore. And we're going to try to get the beeswax out of them. And maybe do some craft projects with them later, like chapstick or something. So what I got here is cheesecloth. I've already cut a good size one here. And then I've got my water boiling already. Just about done. And what I'm going to need for this process, I chose a glass container so you could see after the beeswax is melted. The water that's boiling in the pot, along with all the dirty stuff that's in the comb, will float to the bottom, and all the beeswax will rise to the top. So once it's done solidifying, then you just take the beeswax cake out and then do some further cleaning of it. So I'm going to start, see, it's almost done boiling right here. So it doesn't matter really how much water you put in here, just as long as you can get the comb fully submerged inside. And then the cheesecloth is really fine, so most of the wax will just seep through, and then all of the parts that you can't use will be kept in the cheesecloth, kind of make it easier for cleanup. So I'm not going to do all of it at once because it's the first time I've done it, so I want to make sure that I don't waste the whole bunch if we do something wrong. So we're just going to break it up into tiny pieces. And then make sure where you tie it up in the cheesecloth and it's fully submerged in the water. Because the water doesn't really matter if there's too much. It's going to come out and float to the bottom after we pull all this out. Let's do a little bit more. Okay, I think that's good. And this cheesecloth is reusable. And I chose a unbleached kind from Amazon. I'm going to tie it up. Make sure we got all the spots closed. And then this will break down as it's melting. So we'll see. So I got it all tied up. We're just going to submerge it in the boiling water. And then it's going to take some time to break down. So I'm not going to videotape the whole time. But I will do little snippets during the time that it's melting down and show you the progress inside as it's working. So I got that in there. But yeah, I can already see that it's starting to break down a lot. So we may not get a lot of beeswax out of this first batch just because I've never done this before, so I don't know how much it's actually going to be, but I can already tell that's starting to break down quite a bit just in the few seconds that I've had it in here. And the water is starting to turn like a dirty amber yellow, and that's basically what I saw online. I watched a couple of videos on how to do this. That's basically how theirs look too. Turn it down a little bit. I don't want to overdo it. I think it's supposed to be more at a simmer than a rolling boil, and we are pretty hot right now. Try to get in here so you can see how it looks. see it, but turn it down a little bit. You can tell the cheesecloth is already turned yellow, and the water inside is kind of like a dirty brown now. And that's all the beeswax and all the impurities that are in the comb itself that are coming out. And you're supposed to squeeze the cheesecloth to push more and more of that comb wax out. I wish it wasn't so smoky. You can see it a little bit better. I think that's my fault for being a little bit too hot. Because you can kind of see it floating around on top here, like the foamy yellow. So I'm going to let this go a little bit, and then I'll let you know when it's done here. We'll get back on so we can see. Alright, so what I did was, once I got as much beeswax out of the cheesecloth as I could, I took the cheesecloth out. So this is what's left over. I opened it up and there's like these just brown parts that I guess the bees bring in from the hive. So I emptied the water beeswax mixture from the pot into a glass container just so you can see. This all down here is the water that I had in the pot, along with the impurities from the junk left over sinks to the bottom, and the beeswax floats to the top. Once that fully solidifies, you can take the beeswax cake out and then further clean it. So I'm not sure how long that's going to take, but we'll let it do its thing and we'll come back when it's done. So the beeswax has solidified. I took it off the top and emptied out the dirty water that was underneath, and about 1.5 frames of comb came out to about that much beeswax. And this is really thin. That's all that we got out of about 1.5 frames. And put that in comparison to 1.5 frames. This is about a whole frame. So about that, plus about this much melted down to that. So this is not yet complete. It still needs to be cleaned. And to do that, you put this in a double boiler, get it liquidy again, and then once it's liquid, it gets strained through a coffee filter, which I bought one off Amazon. It's a really fine mesh metal coffee filter. So we'll go through that in the next step.